like to tell you a bit about myself before I tell you about my book. And if there's time, then I will read a little bit of it and hopefully ask questions. Um, so, my name is Marvellous Michael. I am so honored to be here. When I got my invitation letter, I actually called everybody in my family and like
Check
took a
one, check.
screenshot so that they know that it's for real. And then stalked Miss Lola for like a while. But I'm so happy that you could wake up because it was so difficult to wake up this morning, I tell you, because the bed is so comfortable. But thank you for being here. Um, I didn't always want to write a book, and I think this is the most important part of my story. And I didn't always think that I could write a book as well. Um, when I was much younger, when people wanted to be president and everything, I wanted to be an astronaut's wife. Not the astronaut, the wife. And this was because I wanted to go to the moon. And this was very important to me to, to get on that moon. But I didn't want to spend my whole life, going through training, doing all of that, go to the moon, and then what next? So I'm like, I would just marry somebody who knows how to do that, and then go along with him, and then I'll do something else afterwards. So, but then after that, I wanted to be a nurse, and not any kind of nurse, the Florence Nightingale kind of nurse. Do we know her? She's amazing, amazing woman. She was dedicated, she was independent. She would not let anybody tell her what to do. So this kind of was like contradictory to my first plan. And then afterwards, I wanted to be a missionary because my auntie was a missionary and my mom was a missionary. And my grandma, who's here, was a missionary. So she used to send me thousands and thousands of letters, all, Calvary greetings, this is what's happening, people's stories, how they live in different parts of the country, across the globe. It was the most interesting thing to me to have like raw data for stories, to be able to tell people's stories, to be able to listen to their stories. It was the most amazing experience at the time, but I wasn't ready for that, so one day then in GS2, I remember very clearly, I was sitting like on the second seat of the second row in my class, and I had a book where I had poems and short stories, and I just said, I want to write a book, so I'm going to write a book. And then I started. Genuinely, the next day I went to the talk shop. We used to have talk shops, so you can get like stuff from it. So I got a book, and I'm like, okay, I'm going to start writing in this book. And well, I wrote the book like 5 times and lost all my manuscripts. And by this time, I had started my first year in university, so it took a while. And then I just decided I'm not going to write a book. Nobody sent me to write a book. I don't have to do this thing that I'm carrying on my head like this. So I stopped. I started a blog instead. So I said I would post every week and every story, every poem. Who knows that doesn't work? So that didn't work. But I put one up like maybe every 2 months. And then one day I had this amazing story, and I'm like, I have to put this up. And I wanted to do something more with it than just put it up, but I couldn't start another book because I hadn't finished the first book. So I put it up on the blog as a post, and I had someone commented, he's like, oh my God, this is so great, you should write a book. And I said, oh yes, I am writing a book, but I lied because I wasn't writing a book. I had stopped writing a book. And then I went to my mom and I'm like, I want to write a book, and I don't want to write any book, I want to write this book, the one I had started, and I want to finish it. And she said, okay, so she helped me a lot because then she kind of fixed up the room next to mine and turned it into a library. We call it the peace room. So you can't look for trouble in that room. You can't do anything but either work or pray, or you're gonna have to be peaceful. So it was the perfect environment, and I had run out of all kinds of excuses over the years. Like she said, 2017, you will write this book and you will finish it, or you will sit down in this house. So I started, and I wrote like 500 words every day, and in the first quarter of this year, that was in March, then I finally finished my book. And yes, you should clap. Yeah, it was great, but then I realized that I had spent so many years focusing on how to write this book and what to put in the book, that I have forgotten about everything else. Because then I realized that I had to learn how to market, how to sell your idea, how to choose a cover. Choose a cover page is ridiculous. To design it, to fight with your publishers back and forth, like all of these things I had no idea. So it was just unfamiliar grounds. I was just learning as I go, like every day, a new problem that I did not even know could be a problem. It was remarkable to actually not fall down every time. But eventually, in August, it was published on July 28th, and August 17th, I had the official launch at the Shehu Musari Adwa Center in Abuja, and it was great. And then at that moment, just looking at everybody, I just realized that I am not an astronaut's wife. I am the astronaut, and this book is my landing on the moon, and it was just so amazing. And the fact that I had been able to, I think the fact that I was able to keep at it is one of the most important things for me, because then people always try so many things, and if I had stopped at any of the points in time until now, I would not be here. So it's taught me everything that I had to know, everything that I am able to even put in the book, to be able to write about. It's just great. It's been a great experience, and to be here, to know how to talk to you, because I have the worst stage fright, but now I have written a book and now I have to tell people about it. So I have to be here early this morning and convince you that, I have written a book that you should write. So that you should read. Sorry. So I'm going to tell you a little bit about my book. It's a crime thriller, which I know that is not something that you might hear very often from a Nigerian author, but it's set in the United States, and it's, if you like mystery or suspense, I think this is a book that you would love to read. So I have three main characters. I have Mote. She's a Nigerian painter who's married to Jack. He's an American architect. And initially, of course, they had those issues with their interracial union. But they were solid because they were together and they were in love and all of that. But years after, like 17 years after, they lose their son. And that becomes, the beginning of the end. And their daughter, Ara, who is about 16, 17, she watches her brother be killed by her father, this Jack, the American architect. So she spends this period in the book trying to prove to everyone that her father is not the one, because he killed the boy and came home that night. So she had to prove that, this. No, believe me, I wrote the book. If I'm giving you too much, I would know. Anyways, she spends this period in the book proving that, this man did this thing. So it's the ups and downs and understanding how people relate with this book. What I always say about this book is they're not good people, they're no bad people, they're no villains, they're just human beings. And I believe that everybody would find a piece of themselves in the book, because you would ask questions like, would I keep a secret to save my mother? Would I kill my best friend if they really did something that I felt like, oh, they have a secret I don't want them to talk about? Would I kill the man who killed my son if he came home like nothing happened? All these kind of questions that you would think, oh no, I'm good. You would find that situation makes you a different kind of person. And that is what this book is kind of showing you. People who, at the beginning of the book, they were one way, and then something happened and you would not even recognize them. And those who were able to keep themselves. So when people read this book, I want them to be able to reflect on it and say, what character am I? Who am I in this book? And how would I react in this particular kind of situation? So now I would want to read from the book so that you can have a little idea of what I'm talking about. Does someone have my card under their chair? Could you check? I always wanted to do this. Everybody look under your chair. If you should, someone would have my card. A business card. Do you have it? She has it. So here, come have a copy of Birthmarked. You picked your seat well. I'll sign it for you afterwards. Oh, okay. Or let me just sign it for you now. So, congratulations. Okay, so I would like to read It's my favorite part in the book because it's where the boy died, and it's, the turning point is where everything kind of falls apart and starts again. So since you have the book, you can turn to page 32. If you're sitting beside her, you can look around. um, the van finally came to a stop. The door swung open. She couldn't see what was going on, but she heard Talia shout and struggle to get free from whoever was dragging him out of the van. She heard her father shout in protest too, "Leave my son alone." He shouted over and over, "He's just a boy." She choked on her tears, and shouting seemed harder than it ever was. She was next. She didn't struggle at all. She let him drag her out, lift her, and drop her on the floor by her brother. He led them into the woods and made them sit on the ground. He took the bags off their heads and headed towards the van, leaving them there. They both waited for him to walk away from them. It was the same man who had stopped their car. As soon as he was far enough away from them, she began to struggle to get free. She cursed out loud and realized she had forgotten her knife in the car. She continued to struggle until she saw the figure coming towards them from the same direction the dreadlocked man had gone. She gasped when she looked at the man who had brought them into the woods. She was surprised to see her father, but she was also happy to see him unharmed. He stopped in front of them. "Dad, please help take this off," she cried, but he didn't respond to her. She called out to him a few more times, but stopped when she noticed he wasn't approaching them anymore. Talis didn't stop calling for him. She was just about to get up and shout even louder when he brought out a gun from underneath his shirt and shot Tali in the head. She froze to the ground and fell. She cried over Tali's body, screaming. He pulled out a pocket knife from his pocket and tossed it at her and turned back the same way he came. Tali was no longer shouting for his dad. He wasn't crying or whimpering. He was just quiet. She didn't stop calling his name. She quickly reached out for the knife, and after many tries and some deep cuts, she finally broke free. From the distance, she could hear them drive away. She cut Tali's ropes as well and carried him towards the road. Blood had filled his face and soaked up his shirt and her gown. She walked to the side of the road and began to walk down. She soon got tired of carrying him and sat by the road, holding him in her arms, crying and sobbing. She could not believe that her dead brother was in her arms. And at that moment, she could barely think at all. She remembered every time she shouted at him to be quiet or to keep still. And now she would give her life to hear him speak or move again. He shot him. He killed him. How could he? What kind of father killed his child? Why would he kill his son? Or even more, why did he let her leave? How would she tell her mother? These were only a few of the questions that Ara asked herself as she sat by the side of the road, covered in Tali's blood and washing his face with her tears. She got off the ground and began walking again. She didn't know where she was going or where she was headed, but she had to leave. She took off her heels and carried Tali in her arms, and one step after another, she kept walking. And that was all she remembered from that night. Okay, so I have 2 minutes. One question.
In your introduction, you said the book is set in US. I would like to know, because we had a similar discussion over this last year here, involving Leia Denley and Tony Khan. Why was the book set in the US? Is it because we don't have good infrastructural facility to support the plot of your story? That's why it's set in the US.
Nigerians seem to be very eager to know why it's not set in their own house. This is why. Especially when you read the book, it will make more sense. But my characters are from two different, completely different races. One is a white man, a genuinely white man from a white background, and one is a Nigerian woman. With the kind of things that happen in this book, it is not realistic for it to be here, and this is what, and because they make decisions that Nigerians will not make. Now, let's see, this boy is dead, and it's going to be trouble. I wanted it to be, a real investigative case. I want, maybe, for example, this didn't happen in the book. For example, maybe Mote gets a call, immediately, because she will get a call immediately if it's not here. And they're going to be like, okay, your son is here, this has happened. I want immediately for an ambulance to come. I want immediately for a detective to be at her house by, like, in 2 hours. I want Ara to be angry and walk out of the house and slam the door and go away. If you're here, your mother will slap you. Do you get? These things happen and they are fun, but because of the kind of story I was writing, I wanted the freedom to make them make decisions that I don't have to constrict to. Because if I had done that, you will read my book and you will say it's not realistic. Nobody does that. You don't just, what's going on with you? Like, and it's very dramatic. It's a very dramatic book. There's so much, like, you will get halfway through it and you'll be like, what is going on, Seth? But I want freedom. I want to be able to do things that will be realistic to you simply because they're not here.
Yeah, good morning. I want to ask a question that if you are to be a character in your novel, which character would you have been and why?
Oh, okay. That's a good question. But there are no sane people in my book, so I don't know if I want to. Because the people killing their children, the people running away from home, the people doing crazy kind of things. But I will tell you my favorite character. You don't know her yet, Victoria. She's one of the most realistically dangerous characters because she went through a whole lot. And for some people, she's the bad guy. But when I see that she's able to, whatever you throw, no, believe me, whatever is thrown at her, she's able to bounce back, you know, the good or the bad. There are characters in my book that when something happens to them, they just crash and just fall apart. So I like her most especially, not for the decisions she made, because you will read the book and wonder why, but because she's strong enough to bounce back.
Let's give Marvellous. My name is Maryam, and well, I'll tell you a little about myself and why I wrote Burning Bright. So I wrote Burning Bright 2 years ago. Well, it was published 2 years ago. And why it's not like, I was writing fiction since when I was 11, but I wanted to write this after I had an encounter. So I had this near-death experience, and I was like, it would have been a wasted life if after everything I've been through, I don't in some way try to enlighten people about the things that I went through. So sickle cell anemia is big in Nigeria. It should be bigger than it is, but it's not big enough. I was born with sickle cell anemia. It's a disorder. You don't get a say. You're just born with it and you have to deal with it. And I realized, and this is still true, Nigeria has the largest population of people living with sickle cell anemia in the entire world. But in our usual way, we're so nonchalant about it. We're just literally sitting down and letting it fester, like we're not doing anything about it. And I think it's a big deal because the average Nigerian will tell you, okay, well, I've heard about sickle cell. What do you think it means? I don't know. But, I don't think that's okay because it affects us, Is there anybody here who directly or indirectly has never come across sickle cell? Is there one person here? Okay, so I think you can see what I'm getting at. It affects you directly or indirectly. It's gonna be your, friend, it's going to be your lover, it's going to be you. About genotype, you need to make sure that your genotypes are compatible. So Burning Bright is just my way of enlightening the average Nigerian on why it's important, to know your genotype, to make the right choices. I don't think it's fair that what I was born with, other people should be born with it. People don't understand, but it's a lot of suffering. It's a blood disorder, so it affects literally all your organs. It's considered as a disability in, more forward countries. But here, you have to deal with it, and then you have to deal with people not understanding why you can't, why you're tired, why you're sick all the time. So I think really every Nigerian needs to understand it. So it's not a medical book, it's a novel. It's a story, and from the feedback I got, a review from someone who read it in the States, she said she found it to be a great primer on sickle cell. And then, a lot of people said they found it funny. So it's not like it's just medical details. It's a novel, it's a story. I'm sure you're going to enjoy it. My readers have said they found it very hilarious. It's just that at the end, you're going to understand, and hopefully that will help you and those around you make the right decisions. Don't ruin anyone's life. It's 2017. It's not funny. It's not fair to keep giving birth to people who suffer the kinds of things that we suffer. So I'm not going to give any background before I read it because I want you guys to be in suspense enough to go and buy the books. They're available here for $3,500. And before I read it, I want to let you know 40% of all the profits, they go to support people with sickle cell anemia who are less privileged. Okay, so I'm going to read from page 56. It's the third to the last paragraph. Before his children got up and started asking him questions about Nadia, he decided to call his other wife. She lived in another city about 6 hours away with their 5 children. He was supposed to go there today, but with recent developments, he obviously could not. "Hello, good morning," she answered, sounding excited. "Morning, how are you and the kids?" "We're all fine. Are you about leaving?" "No. There has been a situation with Nadia. She's really sick and we don't know what it is. I cannot make it today." She was silent and then gave a short, deliberate breath. "Huh. Oh yes, it's always about them. Well, fine, stay." "How can you even say that? She is very sick. I would have been on my way otherwise." "I need to prepare food for my children who thankfully are not sick and who obviously do not matter now." She hung up. He sighed and wondered how she could be like that at such a moment. She had not even cared to ask what was wrong. Definitely, she would not act that way if it were one of her kids. He shook his head and decided to call his first wife. She answered on the first ring, which was very unlike her. "Hello." "Hello, how is she?" "No change." She sounded severely disconsolate. "She will be fine," he said, not sure even he believed that. "Have the doctors said anything?" "No." "Okay, I will be back with food for you. Hafsa is here cooking." "I don't need food, and obviously neither does Nadia. She should be praying, not cooking. Let her wake up those lazy children. Their sister needs their prayers, not slumber." He could tell she was on the verge of yet another breakdown. "Calm down. And yes, I will bring the food. Just take it easy." She hung up. Okay, so yeah, as I was saying, there are so many sub-themes. So here it just shows, well, a little further. It's about, how Nadia does not really have psychological support. And this is a reality, even for just, young people. We don't have that. We don't think, mental health is a big deal here. You can't really tell your parents. Even if you do talk, wait, the day you say, well, I think I'm depressed. It's like, what? No, don't say that. How can you be so ungrateful? I don't think it has gotten to that. You want to see a psychologist? Why? So especially dealing with, a disorder like sickle cell, it's so much. There's so much behavioral complexes, but there isn't that mental support even from immediate family. So, that's just a little bit of what I was trying to capture here. So I just, want people to make themselves aware. It's too much of a big deal. We can't let this continue to fester. It's ourselves we're killing. It's ourselves we're destroying. It's a lot of pain to go through. And in 2017, I don't know is not an excuse. So what I'm hoping to achieve is when you read this book, you'll understand, the whole matching of genotype, but in a very easy way. It's not very technical. And then you understand just if you take that risk, what kind of a life you're risking your child having, how unfair that is. And so I'm hoping that, through the people here listening, you will tell somebody who will tell somebody who will make the right decision, who will not ruin yet another person's life, especially in Nigeria. There are just so many complications. The climate makes it worse, lack of support, mental health, that makes it worse, and lack of disability considerations. So for example, people like me are highly unemployable. If you're looking for a job, just do not disclose that you have sickle cell, because people will be like, it's not on my money that she's going to be sick for 2 weeks. No. So you need to understand what you will be setting an innocent person up for, should you decide to marry someone who is incompatible. And in my little way, hopefully I will reduce, even if by a tiny percentage, the number of people that get to suffer what I am suffering. So that's what Burning Bright is about, but I promise you, it's a fun book. Okay, so any questions?
Thank you for sharing that. I guess my question for you is, and I know this from experience from somebody who also suffers from another chronic pain. I have something called fibromyalgia, where there are days where I can't get out of bed, unfortunately. But for me, what's really important, what I found that's really important, is the support system around me. So I wanted to know, in order for you to write this book, because I've never written a book. I'm scared to write a book because I'm scared of, am I going to be physically ready to do it if I take on that step? So I wanted to know, what was your process in terms of being supported throughout that whole, from writing a book, because I can't imagine it was an easy process for you to do that.
I'm a very private person. So they didn't know I was writing, even at home. I would just tell them, can you get out of my room? I need some peace. But they didn't know what I was doing. For many people, it's a big deal. Like she said, people knew she was writing, which is a great thing because it's a thing to be celebrated. But I'm just such a private person. So I wrote my entire book in secrecy. It took me 8 months to write Burning Bright. And the whole thing, nobody knew what I was doing. So it was when it was time to start seeking publishers. And I just did everything on my own. I don't know. I guess maybe it's also part of the behavioral complexes that I said. Being sick a lot, I find myself dependent on people to pick me up, to feed me. So I think when I'm able to, I try to just do everything by myself. So I did most of it myself. I just said, okay. It was when my book went live that I sent my parents the picture. I'm like, oh, hey, I wrote a book. So, but then through support, my mom is in the medical line, so she was giving support without knowing for what. I would say, oh, hey, in this situation, what would you give for this patient? And all of that went into my book, but she didn't know. Well, as long as, it achieves what I want it to, I'm fine sharing. It's, it's so weird. You're at home with someone and you feel maybe at the verge of depression and you can't tell them. But I don't know if you know this app called 7 Cups. Okay, someone said something about it. I was, I felt like at the verge of breaking down mentally. And you know how it is. Even I didn't want to just walk up to the psychiatric hospital. So someone tweeted about it, like it's, where you get to meet people you don't know. So because you don't know them, it's so easy to share. So I think, if it were my family here, I'd be sharing less. But because, so you understand, I'm completely fine sharing, even though it's fictional characters. Not everything there that happened to me. But, even if it were my life, I would be happy to share it here as long as it would, make you understand the importance of, genotype and preventing the spread of sickle cell.